Good afternoon, members, and welcome to this meeting of Review of Standing Orders Subcommittee. Meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be made available for viewing through our Council's website. Remote participants, please follow the good practice guidance, which includes muting microphones and switching off your video when you're not addressing the meeting, writing speak in the Teams chat function when you want to contribute, and if you're in the hall, there's only myself and Councillor Johnson here. We'll manage between ourselves, I'm quite sure. Please don't repeat contributions already made by other members. No material should be posted in the chat function if it is intended as part of the discussion. The usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be undertaken by roll call. If any member has to leave the meeting, please either type leave into the Teams chat and then join when you rejoin the meeting so we can keep a track of whether the meeting is quorate. All members should speak clearly, taking their time and speaking directly into the microphone when making contributions. When referring to reports, please provide reference to the relevant page and paragraph to allow everyone to follow. Please focus contributions on areas where clarification is required or to propose an alternative to a recommendation. So, moving on to item 1, sediment and apologies and Chair's approval of members' remote participation. Claire, can you provide the sediment and apologies? I think we may have a full house.
Okay, thank you, Chair. We've got apologies from Councillor Brodie today. So that's 6 members present, being yourself and the Vice Chair, as you said, present in the Council Hall. Other 4 members being Councillors Campbell, Dryburn, McFarlane and Wood, present on Microsoft Teams.
Thanks very much, Claire, and I approve members' remote participation. So moving on to item 2, declarations of interest. Do any members have a declaration of interest they wish to make? Not seeing anybody indicating. Good. So moving on to item 3, the minute of the previous meeting of the 13th of June 2023. Can we note the minutes of the meeting held?
Noted.
Excellent, thank you very much. And on to the first substantive paper, item 4, review of standing orders and the schemes timeline update. And I think, Vlad, there's perhaps a slight error in the timeline. So I'll pass to you first before I bring other members in.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair. In terms of 4.3 of the papers, you'll see the timeline that we're asking members to consider and agree. And you'll see under 1st of April 2024, there's a mention of the officer scheme and the committee scheme go live. Now, there's a slight correction to that, which is the officer scheme will go live on the 1st of April, and that's our intention. However, the committee scheme is likely to, for logistical reasons, go live after the summer recess rather than before it, as obviously it would be a very quick turnaround between that date and any committees that are lined up, and we require obviously full council approval for any committees, and therefore in order to allow officers the time to get all that lined up, we're looking after the summer for the committee scheme going live rather than the 1st of April.
Thanks very much for that clarification. So we'll ensure that that's amended within that timeline. So I'll open the debate to members. Councillor Dryburn.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Obviously, in the reason for the report regarding the reshape and review of the Chief Officer Structure, which is coming effect 1st April, this is why we're looking at this and having a timeline in place. Obviously, since then, there's been some changes to what we as a council have been asked to do with regard budgets and things like that, and in particular, the council tax freeze. Now, I don't think that would change the timeline in any way, but are we aware of any other thing that's coming down the road that may actually affect this timeline? Because we should be ready just in case there is something that comes down the road that may affect the timeline for, you know, the scheme of delegations.
Pat, I'll possibly turn to you. I'm not aware of anything, but is there anything specific within the timeline, Archie?
Not at the moment that I can think of, Chair. It's just that, you know, there are some changes happening at sort of national level that come out of the blue left field, so to say. And you know, if we are aware of that, that'd be great. But I can't think of any at the moment. It's just that we need to be ready. There needs to be a fluidity of this timeline, just in case something happens.
Vlad.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Dryber. I think the most important thing is that obviously we're asking Rossa to agree the timeline. However, absolutely take on board what Councillor Dryber is saying, that there could be other factors, external factors in particular, that impact on this. If it does, we would then come back to Rossall and also obviously full council and alert members of any impact on that timeline with any new indicative review dates for that.
Thanks very much for that. Are you content with that, Archie?
Yeah, thanks, Chair.
Good. Councillor Campbell?
Thanks, Chair, and good afternoon, members. Yeah, I'm quite happy with the timeline. It is a bit tight, I suppose, hence the reason why Archie was picking up, if anything come from left field. We may have to sort of look at that. I'm pleased that Vlad's picked up on the committee scheme that goes live further on down the line rather than on the 1st of April. So I'm quite content with this, but it's very difficult, I suppose, you know, to try and achieve everything for the reshape and review, but we did commit to that, so I'm happy with the recommendations, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that, John. And I think, as you've pointed out, that it needs to be potentially a moving timeline, and obviously we'll have full council in December and again in February, and if there's any additionals out with this committee, we can probably deal with them at full council as well. Would that be correct? Yeah. Any other members? Not seeing anybody indicating that they wish to speak. So with that and with the revision to the timeline, are we happy to agree as presented in the report at section 4.3?
Agree.
Good, thank you. Okay, moving on to item 5, schemes review, initial recommendations, report by Head of Governance and Assurance. And Claire is here to assist any members if you have any questions. Happy to open up for debate to members. Councillor Dryber.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It comes to 2.4 of the recommendations. Consider the Establishment Housing Subcommittee as outlined in 4.6. And I know at the seminar, which is not a decision-making body, but it was very clear from the response that the biggest majority of the members in that particular seminar looking at this particular item didn't want a housing subcommittee and felt that the Strategic Housing Forum was best placed to take this forward. So we're asked to consider the establishment of Housing Subcommittee of Economy and Resources Committee. I don't think that we actually need a Housing Subcommittee. So I would put that forward as a suggestion that we've considered, but we don't believe there's a need to establish a Housing Subcommittee.
Thanks very much, Archie, and I did attend that seminar and took on board the feedback. I think as well, given where we are with the committee structures, it might not be the best time to stand up any new committees, and that perhaps should be considered in the round as we go forward through the entire new committee structure. So I've no opposition to your suggestion today that we don't recommend that to full council in December, and potentially if there's a justifiable reason in the future, we can contain that within future committee structures.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other members? Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I'm inclined to agree with Archie on that one as well. The other one that I'm not particularly comfortable with as well is 4.4, 4.5, and that's consideration of non-elected members' voting rights. I'm struggling with that one. I believe that as elected members, that is our role and not for others. So I don't know what the views of other members would be, but I'd like to hear if there's anything that anybody else would like to bring in on that particular one. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Andrew. Councillor McFarlane? Oh, sorry, Councillor Campbell first.
Thanks, Gail. Yeah, on 2.3, the voting rights for non-elected members, and it's not a criticism, but it would have been helpful if we had those sort of people, who we're actually talking about. For example, in education and learning, we've got the Church of Scotland, Roman Catholic Church, 2 teachers, parent council, youth council, for example. Then when you go on to area committees, you've got representatives from the youth council, and further on, if you have the common good subcommittee, for example, you have a member from the community councils. So it's not just talking about one particular area. I've no view either way. I mean, obviously we're here to consider, but I would like to see that what the representatives are when it does come to full council, because it will be a full council decision. So if we could just sort of have that put on full council papers for members to make that decision, because they are public documents, and anybody for the public would be reading this today, they wouldn't understand who's actually involved in some of these committees. It's just a suggestion at this moment, Gail. Thanks.
Thanks very much, John. I think it's a very helpful suggestion. Claire, would we be able to do that? Just a summary of who sits on what and what voting rights they do or do not have at present. And I'm very aware that the matter of voting rights for our religious representatives has been a historic voting right, and I think there is a statutory obligation to have them on the Education Committee, but there's not a statutory obligation for them to have a voting right. It's just been by convention. And I have to say, they've never abused it in the 16 and a half years that I've been here. They normally abstain. But the question is for full council, do we want to give additional voting rights and maintain what we currently have? So that detail would need to be incorporated within that report. Okay?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Gail.
Good. Councillor McFarlane?
Yeah, similarly on the same point. I believe that as elected members, we're here to make decisions, as it says in the paper. And I believe that whilst the members who are not elected don't exercise that right, it is available to them. And I suppose we probably rely on the fact that they don't exercise it, but there may come a time when something particularly vexes them and they decide to intervene. And I do believe that what we should do is have that elected members are the people who cast votes, and others do so by invitation on particular issues, and that would be dealt with on an ongoing basis rather than it's open to particular groups at this time, as it is at this time. Thanks.
Thanks very much for that. I think we're nodding in agreement. Yep. Any other members on any of the recommendations? Not seeing anybody indicate. So we'll move to the recommendations and move to agree to recommend to full council amendments to standing orders as outlined at 4.1. I'll take silence as agreement, by the way. Agree to recommend to full council amendment to the scheme of delegation to officers as outlined in the appendix. Got a thumbs up from Councillor McFarlane. Good stuff. 3, consider the voting rights of non-elected members as outlined at 4.4 and 4.5, and will ensure that that additional detail is included within the report for full council of who currently has or doesn't have. And 4, consider the establishment of a housing subcommittee as outlined at 4.6. And I think the general consensus there is that it's not required at this time, particularly given that we're looking at a complete committee restructure. Would that be appropriate wording, Archie? Yeah, thumbs up again. Thank you. So, I don't have any other business deemed urgent. Vlad, you're twitching.
Thank you, Chair. It wasn't my intention to twitch. It was just purely just to clarify that in essence 2.4 won't be recommended to full council.
No.
However, 2.3 will put a bit of meat on the bones on that for full council consideration, and it's not that we as officers in terms of that report is recommending anything, and it's not that the review of standing orders committees recommending it. It's purely for consideration, but a bit more meat on the bones of that.
Yeah. Yeah, a good summary. Happy with that, John and Archie? You're both nodding.
Yeah.
Thanks,
I bet you wish all committees went that quicker.
Yeah, I like it when we don't all talk constantly. Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, thank you very much for your participation, and we'll see you all soon, hopefully.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.
Bye.